Sorry.
Nervous.
I am nervous. This is tough stuff. I haven't talked about this. And, you know, my ex-husband texted me the other day, and he said, why in the world would you do this? Why would you bring up the past? To me, this isn't the past. This is my present. This is my life. And I'm trying to deal with it the best I can to move forward. I didn't like him when he was this age. I didn't like him at all. What kind of mother doesn't like their own child? Just his eyes. I don't like his eyes. His eyes, I can't describe it. Just looks like an evil look. This little boy hugging a teddy bear grew up to become a murderer. And that is really hard still to wrap my brain around. I wanted to go to college to become a nurse. My first year of college, I got pregnant with Derek. I was 19 years old, and I'm like, I wasn't ready to be a mom, and I was scared. November 13th of 1991, I had my baby boy. He was so perfect, and with his black hair and big cheeks. Thought about all the things we could do, you know, riding bikes and playing catch and playing with Tonka trucks and just doing boy things. As he grew up, he had a very bad temper. He was destructive. He was defiant. I remember going shopping with Derek, and we passed by these trucks, and Derek decided he wanted one.
Derek, put that back. You don't need another truck.
And I told him, I said, no, I said, I don't have money for trucks today. We're buying groceries. Instead of putting it back, he slammed it on the floor and started pounding the truck on the floor until it broke. I knew in my heart I should be laying down the rules, but I kept flashing back to when Derek was sick. When he was about 7 weeks old, Derek got very sick with a respiratory virus and pneumonia. He ended up having to be life flighted in the helicopter to a large hospital in Duluth, Minnesota. And the doctor had said to me, I can't promise you he'll be alive when the helicopter lands in Duluth. It was really hard on me. And I almost lost him once. I could lose him again. So I wanted to make his life happy. I wanted him to have his way. I wanted him to have what he wanted.
Abandoning this truck.
Okay. Derek was still throwing his tantrum. He wanted the truck. He wanted the truck. He wanted the truck. So I got him a truck. Even though I knew it was wrong, I bought him the truck. I just didn't want to say no. I always noticed he had these things, I thought they were quirks, like OCD type behaviors. He wouldn't touch his food, a sandwich or a donut, even like potato chips. He would eat with a fork. And Derek never played with his toys. They just had to be, all his toys had to be in order. He wouldn't build buildings or anything, he just put them in order. He wasn't interactive, he just wanted to keep to himself. I think the first time I saw the antisocial behavior was when one of my friend's little boys came over to play, and they went to Derek's bedroom to play with some trucks. And Derek did not want that to happen. Derek would do this thing where he would his body would tighten up and his hands would go like this, and he would shake if somebody tried to touch his stuff. I remember Derek, with two hands, pushed him in the chest, pushed him down, and started to hit him. I pulled Derek off, and the little boy's mom came in. I didn't tell her that Derek had pushed him and hit him. I had said that Derek didn't want to share his toys. So Derek stayed in his room by himself, and the little boy was out with me and my friend in the living room, just hanging out with us, while Derek stood guard of his toys.
Hi, sweetie.
Come in.
I started dating Robert.
He's gonna like you. I have a good feeling.
And the first time he met Derek, I brought him over to the house.
Hey, buddy.
And Derek came over to him. And my boyfriend was playing with Derek's hair, sort of parting it. And I asked him, I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm looking for the 666 on his scalp." I didn't take it seriously, but I thought, oh my gosh, there is something wrong with Derek and other people can see it.
Hey, don't you, buddy?
I asked, I said, "Why did you say that?" And he said, I kind of was joking, but I kind of wasn't. It was just the look in his eyes, I think. When he was little, he had, the big, round, bright blue eyes. And then suddenly they just became, they weren't big and bright anymore. They were small and squinty. Like there was no emotion in them, that it was just a blank look. I was hoping that Robert and Derek would get along. I had no reason to think that they wouldn't, but I don't think I took Derek's temper seriously. I didn't think he would hurt people. Oh, I think this is the one and only kiss I ever got from Derek. I love this picture. I was always seeking Derek's affection. I was always trying to please him, to make him happy, to see if I could get this, to see if I could get a hug or a kiss or an I love you. I kept trying, but I never got affection from Derek. Derek had never had rules before Bob came into the picture. It was Christmas morning, and and we had all the presents ready, and I had bought Derek the newest PlayStation. I was so excited. I had taken my lawn chair to Walmart, and I had camped out, and I had sat, and I had waited because I wanted to get this video game for Derek. And Bob had gotten up first, and Bob had made a big breakfast. And Derek woke up and goes to open presents. And Bob said, before we open presents, we're gonna have breakfast. And Derek's like, I'm not hungry, I'm not hungry. You know, he wanted to open the presents. And Bob said, we're gonna sit and we're gonna have breakfast.
Look, I said the presents can wait. Now take a seat.
This was the first time that anybody had ever tried to lay down the law with Derek. Derek said he didn't want to eat. He didn't like scrambled eggs. And Bob said, you're gonna sit there until you eat those eggs. And Derek said, fine. And I got up. I started doing dishes. Derek's sitting there. Derek's just sitting there. And he sat there. And he sat there. Derek sat there the whole day until it was time to go to bed. He did not eat those eggs, and he was gonna show Bob. The next day, Bob went to work. I went to his room and I told him, I said, today's the new day. I said, Bob's gone. Let's go open presents. But Derek was mad. He was still mad the next day that he didn't have his Christmas. Instead of being super excited that I got him this video game that he wanted, Derek smashed the PlayStation. Smashed it, walked away, went to his room. And that's when I boxed it back up. And I took it to the store, and I told them that it must have got damaged in shipping and that I needed a new one. And the store replaced it. And I gave it to Derek. And then he had his PlayStation. I'm embarrassed that I did that. But I wanted Derek to be happy. I wanted him to have the video game. Bob was never physical with Derek, but Derek wanted Bob to get physical. Derek would be in his room playing video games, and we would say, it's time to go, let's go.
Hey, turn this off. We're gonna take your mother to dinner.
He would just sit there.
Hey, come on, let's go.
And continue to play video games and ignore us. And Bob would get in his face. Bob would stand between Derek and the television and say, get up, we're going. Derek would stand up, they'd be chest to chest, and Derek would egg Bob on. Like, come on, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna hit me? What are you gonna do? Come on. Derek would challenge Bob. I think Derek wanted Bob to hit him so he could press charges and have Bob go to jail. Because I don't think Derek would have fought back. Whenever there was arguments between Derek and Bob, I always blamed Bob. Even if I knew that Derek was wrong, it was more important for me that Derek was happy than Bob. And I felt hopeless. I was thinking nothing is going to make him better. Nothing is going to make him happy. Macy was tall and thin and beautiful. She had long, dark black hair, big round brown eyes. She was really funny. She was really bubbly, really outgoing. Derek really changed when he met Macy. I had never seen him so happy. He was laughing, he was smiling, he was affectionate. And it made me happy to know that Derek was capable of feeling, because I wasn't sure. By this time, Bob and I's marriage was over. When Derek told me that Macy was pregnant, I invited them to live with me under the condition that they both stayed in school, that they helped me around the house, that things would be good. That's when he told me, "You better sleep with one eye open, Mother, because I'll slit your throat in your sleep." And I thought, he just might do this. Bang. This was little Gabe's first Christmas. This was a happy Christmas. Derek has a genuine smile on his face in this picture. Derek was a great father. He really doted on Gabe. Derek had graduated by this time. Macy was still in high school, so Derek took care of the baby all day long. He fed the baby, he changed the diapers. I was proud. We were really happy, but it was just a short window. It didn't last. Everything had to be Derek's way. The curtains in our house always had to be closed. I would get up in the morning and open the curtains. He would get up and immediately shut the curtains. The only time Macy was allowed to leave the house was to go to work. She had to go to work and she had to come straight home.
Where were you all day?
Out with some friends.
I don't care. You gotta come home as soon as you get off work. We are your life.
Sorry.
We are your
Sorry.
life.
All right,
Okay?
I apologize.
It seemed like it wasn't love anymore. It was control.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Listen to me.
And they started arguing a lot.
You come home right after work, okay?
Derek.
And once Derek and Macy started fighting, Derek started fighting with me.
You're a pathetic loser.
Started calling me names. He always called me stupid. He called me pathetic. He would taunt me and laugh at me.
Look at you. You're drunk.
He would get in my face and he'd be, "You're such a loser. That's all you do is drink. And that's how you cope with the world is you drink." And he would just call me pathetic. I did feel pathetic. I believed every word he said. I wasn't strong enough to stand up to him. He started making threats to harm me when he was about 19. Derek bought an AK-47 without my knowledge. When I first saw it, he had it on the kitchen table. He had it out. He was cleaning it. And I walked in the kitchen and Derek aimed the gun at me. And he said, "Do I scare you, Mother?" And I thought, oh my God. And that's when he told me, "You better sleep with one eye open, Mother, because I'll slit your throat in your sleep." Bang. And the look on his face he had, I believed him. I thought he just might do this. I stayed in my bedroom all the time, even though it was my house. I didn't want to be out. I didn't want to see him. I had one of my friends put a deadbolt on the door.
Hey, what, are you just gonna drink in your room?
He'd knock on the door and ask me if I had all my paperwork in order and about my life insurance and who was the company and where were the documents.
Answer me!
And I would drink alone in my room. That was my escape. My room was my physical escape, and my alcohol was my mental escape. I wanted to be numb. I didn't want to feel. But I felt guilty. I thought, what kind of mother doesn't like their own child? That just isn't natural, you know? But then I would tell myself, he's not natural either. I was afraid of Derek's temper, his anger, and that I thought that he was a ticking time bomb. I went to the front door to see why is it wide open. And that's when I saw a trail of bloody footprints. I had no idea when Derek would ever leave my house, ever. I pictured myself 80 years old with him still living with me. I saw no end in sight.
I can't do this anymore. No.
Macy and I talked about asking him to leave, and we just couldn't come up with a solution.
He's going to hurt somebody. Me, you, the baby.
Because if we kicked him out, he'd have nowhere to go. And as a mom, as mean as he was, I couldn't do that. I couldn't kick him out and leave him homeless. I hated every day. I would wake up in the morning and go, what's gonna happen today? We had a dog. Her name was Lucy. She was a yellow lab. Derek never liked the dog because he just hated the dog hair, couldn't stand the mess. I got sick and I had to have my gallbladder removed.
Lucy! Where's Lucy?
And when I got out of the hospital and came home. Lucy was gone. And I asked him, like, where's Lucy? Derek said that she had run out in the street and got hit by a car. He said he called the police, and the police took her to the vet, and they had her cremated. I asked him, where's Lucy's ashes? And he said that he didn't keep them because it was extra money to keep them from the vet. I believed he killed Lucy. Lucy never, we lived in that house 2 years. Lucy never ran out on the road. But I guess I just kind of tried to pretend to believe his story because I didn't want to believe otherwise. I didn't want to believe that he killed her. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, she got hit by a car. I was afraid to ask for help. I was afraid that Derek would find out that I had talked about what was going on. And I was afraid of the repercussions, what Derek would do if he found out that I told people. My dog was gone. I didn't know what was going to be next. Macy came to me. It was her birthday. She was turning 18, and Macy said she's moving out. She had told me it was because of Derek's controlling ways and because of all the arguments. She just wanted to move out and to be able to live her life and not have to do whatever Derek told her to do. Macy was leaving just herself. She was leaving the baby with us. She knew Derek would never let her have the baby. I was jealous that she was getting out. I was jealous, but I was proud of her. She was doing something I never had the guts to do. She was leaving. And I cried and we hugged and I told her I understood and I told her I was proud of her. And I told her I was glad that she was getting out and she was going to be free from Derek. She left. I told Derek that she wasn't coming home. And Derek didn't get mad. He didn't do his typical smash things around the house and make holes in the house. He didn't.
Did you hear what I said?
He went into shutdown mode, which was almost scarier. It was scary that he was so quiet. I was just waiting. I was just waiting for the bomb to go off. Derek was acting really weird, like I had never seen before. Derek had the curtains open in the living room.
Why is she doing it?
And he was pacing back and forth in front of the big picture window, wringing his hands, saying, "Gabe's never gonna call another man dad. Gabe's never gonna call another man dad." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" And he's like, "Gabe's never gonna call another man dad." He just kept saying it over and over again. And it scared me to death. I didn't know what to do, so I called my ex-husband. I called Robert, and I said, I'm like, something's wrong with Derek. I said, can you talk to him? And Bob says, yeah, I'll call him later. I'll call him when I get off work. Later, Robert emailed me saying he had talked to Derek. Derek seemed depressed and had felt hopeless, but he said he was going to be okay. When I came home, I noticed right away, I saw Macy's car in the driveway, but I didn't see Derek's car. And I looked at the house and the front door was open. And right away, I'm like, okay, something's not right. I went to the front door, see why is it wide open? And that's when I saw a trail of bloody footprints. What immediately went through my head was Derek got mad and punched the mirror and he's bleeding. I followed the footprints through the house and down the hall, leading to my bathroom. The bathroom door was closed. And coming out from under the bathroom door was a huge puddle of blood. And I opened the bathroom door and I found Macy in the bathtub with her throat cut. I felt like I was watching a movie, or I felt like I'm like, this can't be real. This can't be happening. I was slipping in her blood. I went to get the phone to call 911. The police showed up. That's when I had thoughts of oh my God, where's the baby? I was telling the police, the baby, I don't know where the baby is, the baby. And they went in the house and they looked around and the baby wasn't there. My thought was, he's gonna do something to the baby and then he's gonna kill himself. The police took me to the station. I was covered in blood, and then they kept me there.
Why is that? I don't know where he is. I've never not known where he is.
This was me at the police station right after I found Macy. I was begging them to help me find Gabe. And I kept yelling at them to stop talking to me, to go get go look for the baby.
It's like, what does it matter what my birthday was or what I used to do for a job?
I was frantic. The police kept asking me, where do you think he went? Where do you think he'd go? I had no idea where he would go. About 5 in the morning, a motel clerk in Wisconsin Rapids recognized Derek and little Gabe on the television from the Amber Alert and called the police. And I was in panic mode. I didn't know if if the police came, if he would start shooting. I was frightened that Derek would kill the baby and kill himself. The police came and went to his room. And my son was arrested without incident in Wisconsin Rapids, and the baby was fine. They found that Derek's shoes were bloody. That was the bloody footprints that I saw in my home were from Derek's shoes. They found the knife in his vehicle. My son is a murderer.
Hey, Mother, it's me. I'm sorry about this whole thing. I didn't mean for anything to happen like this. I'm really sorry.
I was not expecting a phone call. I did want to believe he was sorry. I wanted to believe that he didn't mean for this to happen. They got into an argument and it got out of hand.
All I can say is I'm still just really sorry about the whole situation. There's nothing I can do about it now. I'd do anything to go back in time, but it's not how life works.
He was saying he was sorry, but he didn't sound like he was sorry.
I love you too. Please take good care of my baby.
I think it was the first time that he's ever said he loved me, and I think it was because he was in trouble and he needed help. I had met with Derek's public defender multiple times. Even though I didn't like him, I didn't want him to go to prison. I've always fixed things that Derek did. I had done it his whole life. That's all I knew, you know? Derek screws up, I've got to fix it. Derek breaks something, I've got to get a new one. And I thought, he's in trouble, I need to help. As this went on and I was talking to the district attorney and talking to lawyers, it just was like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to help him when who knows what will happen if he gets out, you know? What next? Will life go back to how it was before, or will life get worse? Will he find another victim? When does this end? I got a text from a friend that said, OMG, exclamation, exclamation. Derek decided to take a guilty plea to Macy's murder. I was glad. I think I was glad. I thought, I'll be dead in 40 years. I won't ever have to be around him again. Gabe is mine. I adopted him, and he is my little boy. I've been raising him since he was 2. Just doing what I can to move forward with him to try to keep him as healthy and normal as I can. But every day, like, I'll see Gabe do something and it'll remind me of Derek and it freaks me out. I'm like, because I don't want him to be like his dad. I know it's probably not a big deal, but you know, if I make a pizza, Derek won't eat the pizza. I mean, oh my God, I called him Derek. Gabe. Oh, can I stop?
Yeah.
It's been almost 5 years since the murder, and I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to let people know what Macy and I and little Gabe went through. I know people are gonna judge me, and I carry so much guilt. I have so much guilt. I loved Macy so much, and I wish I could have saved her. She was a smart, beautiful girl, and I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed. Every day I wonder what I could have done different. If somebody asks me, why didn't you do something? As mean as Derek was, I never imagined a murder. I was scared of my son. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go or how to get help. And
the night had that strange stillness only Seattle knows, mist rolling over the sound, the hiss of rain against empty streets, neon signs bleeding color into puddles. Somewhere beyond that wet quiet, a scream cut through the dark. It lasted 3 seconds. Then, silence. Police records would later call it an isolated disturbance. But that night, November 12th, 1985, something far worse began a story that would sleep for nearly 4 decades before clawing its way back into the light. The call came at 2:17 a.m. A jogger out earlier than usual stumbled upon what he thought was a mannequin near the edge of Ravenna Park. But when he moved closer, his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't a mannequin. It was a woman, face down, motionless, rain pooling beneath her, her hair tangled with pine needles, her right shoe missing, her throat cut, clean, deliberate. The name on her ID was Marissa Hale, 27, a local artist known for painting storefront murals across the city, the kind of woman people described as kind to everyone, the kind who never made enemies. Detectives from the Seattle PD arrived before dawn. Flashlights cut across the mud boots, sinking into the earth as yellow tape went up around the scene. One officer vomited behind a tree. Another muttered, "Who could do something like this?" It was a question that would echo through the years unanswered. They found almost nothing. No fingerprints, no weapon, no witnesses. Just a smear of blood on a park bench and a trail of footprints leading nowhere, dissolving into the rain. Neighbors said they'd heard nothing unusual. The jogger who found her swore he'd seen no one else around. Forensics scraped under her nails, combed her hair for fibers, but 1985 wasn't the age of DNA. Evidence that could one day speak was still voiceless, then locked in plastic bags and paper envelopes stacked on metal shelves in the evidence room like forgotten ghosts. Reporters swarmed the case. Headlines screamed across the Seattle Times, "Artist found slain in Ravenna Park, no leads." The city buzzed with fear. Women stopped jogging alone. Parents double-locked doors. A local talk show host called it the work of a phantom. But within weeks, the story faded, another unsolved murder swallowed by a city that had learned to live with its shadows. Detective Paul Renner, a 36-year-old veteran, refused to let it go. He spent nights staring at photos of Marissa, her unfinished mural still drying on the wall of a coffee shop downtown. A swirl of blues and yellows now turned into a memorial. He interviewed her friends, her ex-boyfriend, her landlord. Every path ended in dust. The department moved on. Renner didn't. He kept her file at his desk, even when his captain told him to close it. "There's something off," he said. "Something I'm missing." But whatever that something was, it stayed buried under layers of silence. Then, 2 months later, another woman vanished. Cynthia Moore, 29, a nurse at Harborview Medical Center. She left work after a late shift, last seen getting into her red Toyota. The car was found 2 days later, empty doors, unlocked keys still in the ignition. The pattern was too close. Both victims, young independent brunette, attacked in isolated areas. The press whispered about a serial killer. Police denied it. But Renner saw the parallels and felt the same chill he'd felt in Ravenna Park. Weeks turned into months. By spring 1986, the city's fear had dulled into unease. New crimes replaced old ones. Budget cuts hit the homicide unit. Files were boxed and shelved. The Hale case, now labeled cold, sat in a metal drawer marked unsolved. The years rolled by. Detectives retired, died, replaced by new faces who didn't know the story. Seattle changed buildings rose where empty lots once stood. Coffee chains took over corners once haunted by cigarette smoke and neon. But somewhere hidden in the dust of evidence archives, Marissa's case waited. In 2019, a young detective named Alyssa Grant transferred to the Seattle PD's cold case unit. She was sharp, relentless, and obsessed with forensic tech. To her, every forgotten file was a voice waiting to be heard again. One evening, while digging through old boxes, she found the Hale folder. The cover was brittle, the ink faded. Inside, a Polaroid of Marissa at the scene. Grant stared at it for a long time. Something about the image, the angle of her body, the missing shoe, pulled at her instinct. She decided to reopen it. When she requested the original evidence, the clerk laughed. "Half of that stuff's dust by now," he said. But the samples were still there. Scrapings from under Marissa's fingernails, hair fibers sealed in a vial, a small patch of dried blood from the park bench. Grant sent them to the state crime lab for retesting with modern DNA methods. She didn't expect much. Old cases rarely yielded miracles. But 2 weeks later, her phone rang. The lab technician's voice was trembling. "We got a hit," he said. The DNA matched a partial profile in CODIS, the national database. It belonged to a man named Richard Lang, now 63, living quietly in Spokane. No priors for violent crime, no record connecting him to Seattle. Just a single arrest in 1992 for trespassing charges dropped. Grant's stomach turned. She pulled his old employment records. Back in 1985, Lang had been a city maintenance worker. His assigned area, Ravenna Park. Grant drove east that same night, rain streaking her windshield wipers, slapping to the rhythm of her pulse. Spokane was quiet under the snow streets, lined with silent houses. She parked outside Lang's home, a one-story bungalow with a garden of dead hydrangeas. The man who opened the door looked harmless. Pale eyes, calm smile. "Can I help you, officer?" he asked. When she told him she was there about a 1985 investigation, his expression didn't change. But his hands twitched, just slightly, enough for her to see it. She asked if he'd ever worked for the Seattle Parks Department. He nodded. A long time ago. She asked if he remembered Ravenna Park. His eyes flickered. Of course. Beautiful place. Her questions were gentle at first, then sharper. "Do you remember a woman named Marissa Hale?" A pause, a flicker. "No," he said too quickly. They talked for 40 minutes. He never invited her in. But she saw things through the doorway, a shelf of old park maps, photographs of trees, a box labeled 1985 projects. When she asked if he'd be willing to provide a DNA sample, he smiled again. "If it helps," he said. The lab results came back a week later. The match was conclusive 1 in a billion. Richard Lang's DNA was found under Marissa's fingernails. After 37 years, the phantom had a face. When news broke, Seattle erupted. 1985 cold case solved, the headlines read. Park worker arrested in decades-old murder. People who'd lived through that era wept, remembering the fear that once gripped the city. Families of other missing women called police, asking if their loved ones were next in line for answers. The past had finally stirred, and it was loud. But even as Lang sat in an interrogation room, silent, behind glass, the case felt wrong. His records showed he'd been transferred out of Ravenna Park weeks before Marissa died. His time cards placed him miles away, the night of the murder. And then came the whisper from the forensics lab contamination was possible. The old evidence had been handled by dozens of people over decades. The certainty of the DNA match began to crack. Grant sat alone in her office that night, staring at the photos again, the park, the footprints of the missing shoe. If Lang wasn't the killer, then who had been close enough to leave his trace? The more she dug, the more she realized something chilling. Someone inside the original investigation might have known more than they'd ever said. And in the shadows of Seattle's rain, a truth long buried was starting to rise. The storm that swept across Seattle that night felt like a reflection of what was happening inside the department. Reporters camped outside the precinct cameras, flashing through the downpour the words decades-old justice echoing across every broadcast. But inside, behind closed doors, Detective Alyssa Grant was staring at a growing pile of contradictions. The DNA was supposed to end it. Instead, it cracked the case open wider. Richard Lang sat in interrogation room 4, calm too calm. A frail man with gray hair, thick glasses, and the stillness of someone who had nothing left to fear. For 10 hours he said almost nothing. He didn't ask for a lawyer. He didn't ask to leave. He just sat there, hands folded neatly on the table, eyes fixed on the two-way mirror as if he could see through it. When Grant walked in, she noticed his scent, clean soap, faintly metallic. "You've been waiting for this a long time, haven't you?" she said. He smiled slightly. "I suppose we all wait for something." She dropped the photos on the table. Marissa's body, the park, the Polaroids. Lang didn't flinch. Not once. "That's where you worked," she said. "You were on site the same week she died." He shook his head gently. "No, I was reassigned to Gasworks Park that month. You can check the records." She already had. The records confirmed it. But she also knew time cards could lie. "You're saying you never went back?" His eyes drifted toward the ceiling. "I don't remember," he said softly. When they took his DNA swab, he hadn't hesitated. He'd almost seemed relieved. And yet, when the results came back matching him to a 1985 sample, he didn't protest. He didn't deny it. He just said, "Then I guess it's true." The phrase haunted her. Not a confession, not denial, just surrender. The prosecution wanted a clean story. The department wanted closure. Grant wanted the truth. She dug deeper, through personnel records, maintenance logs, even old internal memos. That's when she found something strange, an old roster sheet from the Parks Department dated 2 days before the murder. Lang's name had been crossed out. In blue pen beside it, someone had written another H. Renner. The name hit her like a blow. Paul Renner, the original detective on the Hale case, her predecessor, the one who refused to let it die. He'd retired in 2004, moved to a cabin near the Cascades. No record of misconduct, no complaints. A respected name, a mentor figure in every training manual. But why would his name appear on a park roster? She checked deeper. Renner had volunteered for a community partnership cleanup project at Ravenna Park that same week. His report mentioned no conflict of interest, but something about the timeline felt off. His memo was filed before the murder, and the signature at the bottom of that memo, it matched the one on Lang's time card approval. 2 signatures, 1 pen. The discovery gnawed at her. She tried to sleep that night, but the image of Marissa's body kept flashing behind her eyelids, her hand half buried in mud, the missing shoe pointing toward the forest path. Something about that angle had always bothered her, like she'd been running from someone she knew, someone she trusted. At dawn, Grant drove to the records archive under the precinct. The place smelled of dust and old metal. She pulled the Renner box case file hash 851432. Inside were dozens of notes, Polaroids, and a single cassette tape labeled Witness E. Klein. The interview had never been transcribed. She found an old tape player, blew the dust off, pressed play. Static, then a trembling voice. "I saw her that night. The girl. She was with a man. Tall, dark coat beard, maybe." The voice broke off a sniffle. He called her by name. He said, "Marissa, wait." Grant froze. Renner's voice followed on the tape, calm, reassuring. "You're sure about the name?" The witness hesitated. "I think so." It was dark, but she seemed to know him. Silence. Then the tape clicked off. The official report didn't mention this interview. It didn't even list a witness. The tape had been buried for 37 years. Grant's heart pounded. She needed to find E. Klein. It was the only name attached to the recording. She ran the name through databases, voter records, hospital logs. Nothing. Then, in an old newspaper clipping from 1986, she found it: Elaine Klein, 43, local dog walker, missing since February. Her disappearance had been ruled non-criminal. 2 months after Marissa Hale, Grant stared at the article until her vision blurred. The same signature on both cases, the same detective. By afternoon, she was in her car again, heading toward the Cascades. The GPS signal cut out miles before she reached the small cabin Renner called home. The place looked like a photograph from another life. Wooden porch, faded curtains, smoke rising from a chimney. She knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Then the door creaked open. Renner stood there, older but unmistakable, sharp eyes, weathered skin, the posture of a man who'd seen too much. "Detective Grant," he said, as if he'd been expecting her. "You've been busy." She stepped inside cautiously. The walls were lined with boxes, file folders, and corkboards covered in photos. Every case he'd ever worked, mapped and labeled in obsessive detail. At the center, Marissa Hale's picture circled in red string. "I never stopped working it," he said quietly. "They told me to let it go. I couldn't." Grant looked around. "You interviewed Elaine Klein." He nodded. She saw something she shouldn't have. "What happened to her?" His expression hardened. "She disappeared before I could protect her." She took a step closer. "Your name was on a park roster the week Marissa died. Why?" He smiled faintly. "Because I was there." The words hung in the air like a blade. "You were working the case before she was found." "No," he said. "I was visiting someone." "Who?" He turned toward the window. "Marissa." Grant felt the room tilt. "You knew her." His jaw tightened. "Before she died, she came to me. Said someone was following her. I thought she was just frightened an artist alone in the city. I told her I'd look into it." "You didn't report that in your notes." He sighed. "I couldn't. I was already compromised." The silence stretched, broken only by the ticking of a clock somewhere in the cabin. "Compromised how?" Renner looked straight at her. "Because I was the one following her." The confession didn't come as a shout. It came as a whisper, a truth too heavy to lift. Grant's hand moved instinctively toward her holster. "Why?" He sat down slowly. "You ever get obsessed, detective? So deep into a case you start to blur the line between protection and possession? She was painting something in that park, a mural of faces. I used to watch her work from my car. I thought I was keeping her safe. I wasn't." His hands trembled. "The night she died, I went to see her. She was scared. Said she'd found something hidden in the park maintenance shed. She never told me what. When I left, she was alive." "Then how did your DNA end up on her?" He looked up, eyes hollow. "I don't know. Maybe I touched her hand. Maybe someone made sure I did." Outside, thunder rolled across the hills. Grant stared at the old detective, the man she'd once idolized, and realized she couldn't tell if he was confessing or protecting someone else. In the flicker of lightning, she noticed something pinned on the corkboard behind him. A faded photograph of the maintenance crew from 1985. There was Lang, there was Renner, and between them, half hidden in shadow, a third man whose face she didn't recognize. The caption read, "Ravenna Park Restoration Team, October 1985. And at the bottom, in Renner's handwriting, he was there too. The cold case wasn't solved. It was just beginning. The photograph burned in her mind long after she left the cabin, the three men standing in the drizzle work jackets, darkened with rain, the forest rising like a wall of secrets behind them. Richard Lang on the left, expression unreadable. Paul Renner in the center, a faint smile, hiding exhaustion. And the man on the right, taller, younger face, turned slightly away, name tag barely visible. Grant zoomed in on her phone later that night, squinting through the grain. The tag read M. Doyle. No record of him existed in the park's digital archives. No address, no employee number. It was as if he'd never worked there. But Renner's handwriting was clear. He was there too. Back at the precinct, the cold case board glowed under the dim light. Photos of Marissa Hale, Cynthia Moore, and the missing witness, Elaine Klein, were pinned like a constellation. 3 women. 3 ghosts. And at the center, a tangle of names tied together by a single park. Grant typed Michael Doyle, Seattle, 1985 into the database. Nothing. Then she tried Matthew Doyle. A hit. An obituary dated 1996. Matthew Doyle, 41 local contractor, died in a car accident on I-90. The article mentioned his employer, the Parks Department, the same one that had employed Lang, the same one that had transferred Renner there for his community partnership. She scrolled down. Doyle's vehicle had left the roadway, police said. No witnesses, no investigation, closed within days. Grant leaned back in her chair, the hum of the fluorescent light drilling into her skull. Every time she thought she'd reached the end, the ground shifted again. By morning, she was at the Department of Records. The clerk, a tired man with half-moon glasses, flipped through yellowed folders. Doyle. Doyle. He muttered. Here. The file was thin, too thin. A single page. Employment start date September 1985. Termination marked November 13th, the day after Marissa's murder. No reason listed. Grant stared at the page. Do you have any record of who signed the termination? The clerk adjusted his glasses. Paul Renner. The world seemed to tilt for a moment. She'd expected it, and yet seeing the name in black ink felt like a blade to the chest. She left the office without a word, clutching the file. Outside, the rain returned, steady cold, relentless. Seattle's skyline blurred behind the windshield as she drove back toward the precinct. Her mind replayed the fragments Renner's quiet confession. Lang's strange calm, the photograph, the missing witness. Somewhere between them, the truth was breathing, waiting. She pulled into the lot parked and went straight to evidence storage. The attendant frowned. Back again, Detective. Yeah, I need the Hale files. Everything from 85. He hesitated. Those were just pulled last week. For audit. By who? He checked the logbook. Detective Renner. Grant's pulse spiked when, 3 days ago, her breath caught. He'd known she was getting close. Maybe he'd wanted her to find him, or maybe he was cleaning up. She needed to move fast. She opened the cold case database and cross-referenced Renner's last known logins. The system tracked every file access, every note revision. At 2:43 a.m. the night before she visited him, his username had downloaded 2 documents. Ravenna_park_photos_85 and maintenance_roster_update.pdf. Both were now deleted. She restored them from backup. The photos loaded slowly, grainy black and white park trails glistening under flashlight glare. But there was one she'd never seen before. A shot of the maintenance shed door splintered open. On the ground, a smear of paint turquoise blue, same shade as the mural Marissa had been painting before she died. Inside the shed, something metallic glinted under the camera's flash, a crowbar, and behind it, faintly visible on the wooden wall, a half-finished mural, not one of Marissa's, crude, childlike, a face with hollow eyes and a wide painted grin. She zoomed closer. The initials MD were scrawled beside it. Matthew Doyle. Grant's heart thudded. She scrolled through the roster PDF. The file listed every park employee for 1985 sorted by project. Most names matched Lang's and Renner's notes. But beside Doyle's name, a note had been typed in all caps, "Do not rehire. Incident file sealed." She called the Parks Department. "I need access to sealed incident files from 1985. "Not possible," the woman on the line said. "Those are city restricted. You'd need a subpoena." Grant hung up. There wasn't time for paperwork. She printed what she had and drove straight to Spokane. Lang's house looked different this time. Curtains drawn, porch light off. She parked a few houses down and watched. Midnight, 1 a.m., nothing. Finally, a flicker of movement, a shadow crossing the living room window. She stepped out, rain whispering on her coat. The front door creaked open before she even knocked. Lang stood there as if he'd been waiting. "Detective," he said softly, "you shouldn't be here." "You lied to me," she said. "You said you didn't know her. You did." He smiled faintly. "Everyone knew Marissa." "What about Doyle?" His face twitched. "Just once." "Why are you asking about him?" "Because he was fired the day after she died." "Because you worked with him." "Because your DNA was found on her." Lang's hand gripped the doorframe. "You think I killed her? No, I saw her. That's all. I went to her mural that night. She was already dead." "Then why didn't you report it?" "Because I knew who did it." The words hit like a thunderclap. "Who?" Lang looked past her toward the dark street. "Renner." Grant's pulse roared in her ears. "He said you were the one." Lang's laugh was dry hollow. "Of course he did. He always needed a villain. He found one in me. What did Doyle have to do with any of it?" Lang's voice lowered to a whisper. He saw something. He tried to tell Renner. Then he disappeared. A few weeks later, they said he crashed his car. But I saw the wreck. It didn't look like an accident. Grant took a step forward. "You're saying Renner killed them both." "I'm saying Renner was obsessed. With her. With control. And when she rejected him, something broke." The sound of a car engine cut through the rain. Headlights swept across the yard. A dark sedan rolled to a stop behind Grant's vehicle. Renner stepped out. No badge, no uniform. Just a long coat and the same quiet expression he'd worn in the cabin. "Evening, Alyssa," he said calmly. "Mr. Lang." Her hand went to her holster. "You've been following me." He smiled faintly. You left a digital trail a rookie could find. Lang took a step back, voice trembling. You stay away from me. Renner's tone didn't change. You shouldn't dig up ghosts, Alyssa. You don't know what they cost. Tell me the truth, she snapped. Who killed her? For a moment, he said nothing. Then, softly, you think you can separate the truth from the man who tells it. A shot cracked through the night. Lang staggered backward, eyes wide, blood blooming across his shirt. Grant dove behind the porch railing, heart-pounding, gun drawn. Renner stood motionless, gun still raised, rain dripping from his hair. He was going to kill you, he said evenly. You don't understand what he's done. Drop it, she shouted. But he didn't. He looked almost relieved. He was the one, Renner whispered. He killed her. I covered it up because I thought I could fix it. Because she deserved peace. But there's no fixing this. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. The neighbors must have heard the shot. Renner dropped the gun, stepped back, hands raised. You'll never find what she hid, he said quietly. It's still there, waiting. Grant cuffed him, her hands shaking. Lang lay motionless on the porch, rain washing crimson into the cracks of the wood. As paramedics arrived, she turned toward the dark outline of Ravenna Park in the distance, the place where it all began. Somewhere out there, beneath decades of roots and moss, Marissa Hale's final secret was still buried, and she was about to unearth it. The rain had not stopped in 2 days. It was the kind that soaked through skin, through thought, until every breath tasted like iron and asphalt. By the time the news broke, retired detective arrested after deadly shooting in Spokane, the story had already ignited every newsroom from Seattle to Portland. Cameras swarmed the precinct. Anchors spoke in hushed voices, and the words "cold case" once again filled every headline. But to Detective Alyssa Grant, none of it felt like triumph. It felt like quicksand. Richard Lang was dead. Paul Renner was in custody, and yet the truth remained murky, smearing itself between the lines of every report, every photograph, every silence that refused to end. The interrogation room smelled of wet concrete and burnt coffee. Renner sat alone at the metal table, wrists cuffed, his eyes fixed on a single drop of water trickling down the mirrored wall. When Grant entered, he didn't look up. "They say you're a good detective," he murmured. "You don't look convinced." She placed the crime scene photos in front of him, Lang's body on the porch, the blood seeping through wood, the gun at his feet. "You executed a suspect," she said. "In cold blood." He smiled faintly. "In cold rain, maybe, but not in cold blood. You said you were protecting me. I was." His voice was quiet, measured, as though explaining something to a child. Lang wasn't just a suspect. He was the key. He knew what Marissa found. He was going to use it. Grant crossed her arms. "Use what?" Renner leaned back in his chair. "Do you know what the Ravenna Restoration Project really was?" "City maintenance," she said. "Trail repair, groundskeeping." He shook his head slowly. "That's what they told us, but back then the Parks Department was a front for something else. Illegal dumping, chemicals, waste contracts tied to companies that shouldn't have been anywhere near a public park. Marissa found out. She painted it." Grant frowned. "Painted it." He nodded toward the evidence file on the table. "You saw it, didn't you? The mural in the shed." Her pulse quickened, the one with the face. "It wasn't a face," he said. "It was a map." Grant stared at him, her throat tightening. She used colors turquoise, yellow, red to mark the dump sites. She thought it was art, thought she was exposing beauty. But someone realized what she'd seen. The night she died, she called me, said she had proof. By the time I got there, she was gone. Lang was standing over her. He swore it was an accident. I didn't believe him, but I couldn't prove it, and the department was under pressure to close the case. So I buried it. Grant's hands clenched into fists. "You planted evidence. I preserved her story," he said. "You think anyone would have listened? A park worker accused of murder? They would have shut it down, erased it all. I thought if I stayed close, if I kept it alive, it would find its way out one day." Her voice dropped. "So you killed Lang to protect a ghost?" He met her gaze, finally eyes hollow. "No, I killed him because he was about to dig up the wrong body." The words hung between them like smoke. By afternoon, the precinct was in chaos. Federal agents had stepped in citing environmental violations and city-level corruption. Evidence units swept through storage, cataloging everything tied to the Ravenna files. Reporters shouted questions through the rain. Grant ignored them all. She drove back to the park. The city had changed, but the trees hadn't. They loomed like sentinels, dripping and silent. The path to the old maintenance shed was overgrown, the wooden door warped with moss. She pried it open. The smell of decay hit her wet wood rust, something faintly chemical. The mural was still there, the crude face, the initials MD, the turquoise streaks that now seemed less random, more deliberate. She took out her flashlight and traced them lines, curving across the wall, looping around nails hammered into the wood. There were 6 of them, each marked with faint numbers, coordinates. Grant pulled out her phone, entered the numbers into GPS. They formed a pattern, 6 points around the park, circling the central ravine. She followed the trail through mud and roots, her breath clouding in the cold air. At the final coordinate, near an old drainage tunnel, the earth dipped into a shallow pit. Her light caught something half buried in the dirt. Metal. She brushed away the mud and froze. A rusted barrel, its lid warped and cracked. Faded stenciling read Biohazard Olympic Chemicals Inc. Her stomach turned. Olympic Chemicals had been shut down in 1986 for illegal toxic dumping along the Washington coast. The connection wasn't coincidence, it was cover-up. She called it in. Within hours, the area was flooded with hazmat suits and floodlights. Reporters gathered behind barricades as men in white masks lifted barrel after barrel from the ground, 30 in total, some leaking into the soil, others sealed tight. The EPA arrived before sunrise. By morning, the story had shifted again, cold case murder linked to decades-old environmental scandal. Renner's confession suddenly made sense, and yet not entirely. When Grant returned to the precinct, her desk phone was ringing. She picked up. The voice on the other end was shaky male. Detective Grant. Yes. This is Dr. Levin from the Spokane County Morgue. We finished the autopsy on Richard Lang. She braced herself, and he didn't die from the gunshot. What? The bullet wound was clean, but his heart stopped before impact. Toxin levels in his blood were off the charts, something industrial. Chlorinated hydrocarbons, possibly old exposure. It's like his body was a storage tank. Grant's breath caught. Whatever he was involved in, Levin continued, he'd been dying for years. She hung up slowly, her mind racing. If Lang had been exposed to the chemicals, maybe Marissa had too. Maybe that was why she painted it, why she saw something others couldn't. But then a question rose that chilled her. How had Renner known where to find Lang that night? She pulled surveillance footage from Spokane's traffic cams. One camera, 2 blocks from Lang's house, caught Renner's sedan idling for hours before the shooting. Another showed him meeting someone behind a diner earlier that day. The footage was grainy, but she recognized the posture, the way the man kept his hands in his coat pockets. It wasn't Lang. It wasn't Renner. It was someone else. Grant zoomed in. The timestamp flickered. The man turned his head for a split second toward the camera. His face was older but unmistakable. The same sharp jaw, the same distant eyes. Matthew Doyle, the man who'd supposedly died in 1996. Her throat tightened. The obituary, the sealed file, the car accident, all of it a fabrication. Grant replayed Renner's words in her mind. You'll never find what she hid. If Doyle was alive, he was the last link, the one who knew what Marissa had discovered, what Renner had buried, what Lang had feared. And somewhere out there, he was watching her dig up his secret. She closed the laptop, grabbed her coat, and stepped into the rain. The city was silent, except for sirens in the distance. The streets shimmered under the glow of red lights. The cold case wasn't closed. It had just come back to life. The storm over Seattle was relentless, a curtain of rain that blurred the skyline and swallowed sound. Alyssa Grant drove through it, the wipers beating in frantic rhythm. Every streetlight shimmered like a wound. She couldn't shake the image from the footage, Matthew Doyle's face, pale and unmistakably alive. The man buried under a fabricated death certificate, walking free 3 decades after he'd supposedly crashed on I-90. By the time she reached the precinct, dawn had barely cracked the sky. The air inside felt thick with unease. Her captain, Marcus Boyd, was waiting near her desk, coffee steaming in his hand. "You look like hell," he said flatly. "I just saw a ghost," she answered. He frowned. "Doyle." She nodded. The man in the photo from 1985. The one who was declared dead. I found him on Spokane traffic footage the day Lang was shot. Boyd's expression hardened. You're sure? I'd bet my badge on it. He sighed, rubbing his temples. You realize what that means. We've got a 30-year conspiracy buried under 2 bodies and a toxic dump site. And now a dead man who's somehow alive. Then we dig, she said. Within the hour, they had the coroner's report from Doyle's so-called accident in 1996. The details were almost insulting single-vehicle crash, no autopsy requested cremation authorized by next of kin. Only one problem, there was no record of any next of kin. The authorization form had been signed by P. Renner. Grant stared at the signature until the letters blurred. He faked the death, she whispered. He covered for him. Why, Boyd asked? Because Doyle knew too much. She spent the next 12 hours digging through property records, employment logs, tax databases. Finally, she found him under a new name, Martin Dole. Same initials, same birth date, same driver's license photo, only older. A retired contractor living under the radar in Yakima County, 200 miles away. By nightfall, she was back on the road. The city lights faded behind her, replaced by dark fields and the hum of highway. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the tires on wet asphalt. Every instinct screamed that she was walking into something planned, something waiting. The house was small, hidden behind a row of cedars at the edge of a forgotten road. No lights, no sound. Only the faint, metallic glimmer of a mailbox that read M. Dole. She parked, drew her gun, and approached. The door creaked open before she touched it. Detective Grant, a voice said from inside, calm, steady, mail. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Step into the light. He did. Older than she expected, but the eyes were the same as in the photograph. Cold, intelligent, patient. You shouldn't have come alone, he said. You shouldn't be alive? He smiled faintly. That makes 2 of us, then. I've been buried for a long time. Matthew Doyle, she said. You worked for the Parks Department in 1985. You were at Ravenna Park the week Marissa Hale was murdered. I was, he said. And I saw what really happened. Grant's pulse hammered. Then say it. He took a slow step closer, hands visible. You think Renner killed her? You think Lang covered it up? You're half right. They both did. She frowned. Both. Doyle nodded. They were in it together. Renner was obsessed with her. Everyone knew it. Lang wanted her silence. She found out about the dumping, started documenting it. Lang panicked. They argued. Renner intervened. It got violent. She fell. Hit her head on the edge of the bench. She was still breathing when I arrived. Grant felt the room tilt, and then Renner told me to help him. Said it was an accident. But when she started to move, Doyle's voice caught for the first time. He finished it. Then he turned to me and said, You were never here. The rain outside deepened, hammering against the roof. Why didn't you come forward? Grant asked. Because he owned me, Doyle said bitterly. He destroyed the report that proved the dumping, said if I ever spoke, I'd join her. Then he made sure I disappeared. Staged the crash. I've been dead ever since. Grant's hands trembled. You could have ended this. He looked at her with weary eyes. You think anyone wanted it ended? The city signed those contracts. The same people still running departments now? The truth would have burned half of Seattle. She hesitated. Why come back? He exhaled slowly. Because Renner was losing control. He called me last month, said someone maybe Lang had found the barrels. He wanted me gone again. But this time I decided not to run. Grant's phone buzzed in her pocket, an incoming call. The display read, Captain Boyd. She answered, keeping her eyes on Doyle. Grant Boyd said urgently, We've got a problem. The forensics from the Ravenna barrels, they weren't just chemical waste. They found bone fragments, human. Her grip on the phone slipped. What? One partial skeleton. Female. Estimated age mid-40s. ID pending. Grant's breath caught. Elaine Klein. Boyd's silence was answer enough. When she looked back up, Doyle was gone. The front door banged open, wind howling through the frame. She sprinted outside, flashlight, slicing through the rain, but the night had swallowed him. Only footprints led toward the woods. She followed mud clinging to her boots, branches tearing at her sleeves. The beam of her light caught movement ahead. Doyle running, clutching something metallic in his hand. Stop, she shouted. He didn't. A flash of silver. A gunshot cracked through the forest. She ducked behind a tree. Heart-pounding rain and gunpowder thick in the air. Another shot. She fired back once, twice, then silence. When she reached the clearing, Doyle was on the ground, clutching his shoulder. The gun lay beside him. He looked up, eyes burning through pain. "You have no idea what you've opened," he hissed. Those barrels weren't just waste. They were graves. "Whose?" she demanded. His voice broke. Everyone who tried to stop them. He coughed, blood spilling from his mouth. Renner wasn't the monster. He was the cover. The real ones. He stopped, eyes glazing. They're still watching. His pulse faded under her hand. Rain pooled around him, washing the blood into the soil. By dawn, the clearing was flooded with uniforms and floodlights. Forensics marked the scene. EMTs carried Doyle's body away under a plastic sheet. Boyd arrived, trench coat, dripping. "You all right?" She nodded, though her voice was hollow. He said the barrels were graves. He sighed. "Then we'd better start digging." They did. 3 days later, the excavation at Ravenna Park revealed 6 more barrels buried deeper than the rest. Inside each skeletal remains 5 women and 1 man. DNA confirmed 2 of them, Marissa Hale and Elaine Klein. The others unidentified. The city went silent. Headlines screamed, "Serial murder in Seattle's past cold case unravels decades-long conspiracy." The mayor held a press conference promising justice, but Grant could see it in their eyes, the panic of people who'd built careers on secrets now exposed to daylight. That night, Grant stood alone at the edge of the park. Floodlights cast long shadows over the mud. The air smelled of rain rust and truth. She closed her eyes and heard Doyle's last words again. "They're still watching." Somewhere in the darkness, she felt it, that presence, the weight of eyes unseen. The cold case had been cracked open, yes, but something else had come crawling out with it. And it wasn't done. The city didn't sleep anymore. Every channel carried the same footage, hazmat suits digging through blackened soil barrels lifted one by one from the earth like relics of a buried sin. Reporters called it the Ravenna Graves. To the public, it was the end of a mystery. To Detective Alyssa Grant, it was the beginning of something much darker. 6 barrels, 7 victims, and counting. In the forensics lab, the air buzzed with fluorescent hum. Plastic evidence bags lined the counters, each tagged with a year, a date, a location. Grant stood over them, her coffee cold, her pulse steady but low. The autopsy reports were spread out like a timeline of horror. Each victim had traces of the same chemical compound in their bones, trichloroethylene, the solvent dumped illegally in the park soil during the 1980s. But there was something else, tiny metallic fragments, not environmental, deliberate. "Microfilament," said Dr. Hall, the lab chief, "looks like something used to reinforce concrete fiberglass mix, but this is too fine, more like insulation." From the barrels, Hall shook her head. From something built after the fact. Someone sealed these victims twice, first in metal, then in resin. Grant frowned. "You're saying they weren't dumped, they were preserved." Hall hesitated, almost like someone wanted them to last. The words hung in the sterile air like static. When she left the lab, Boyd was waiting near the elevators. His tie was loose, his face drawn. "Press wants a statement," he said. "Tell them nothing. They'll crucify us if we stay silent. They'll crucify us more if we speak too soon." He sighed, then handed her a folder. "You need to see this. It came from the Attorney General's office. Environmental records sealed since '86. She opened it. Inside were contracts linking Olympic Chemicals to a shell company called North Star Infrastructure. The signature at the bottom wasn't corporate, it was political. Thomas Renner? Her blood ran cold. "Who is this?" State Senator Boyd said quietly. "Paul Renner's father?" The air seemed to vanish around her. He signed the contracts for the dump sites, every one of them. And after the scandal broke, he was the one who ordered the case sealed. Grant swallowed hard. So this wasn't about one murder. It was about burying evidence on top of bodies. Boyd nodded. And every cop who touched that file either retired early or vanished, including the ones who supervised your new hero. She didn't answer. Her thoughts had already jumped ahead to Renner's words in the interrogation room, his hollow confession. "You'll never find what she hid." What if she didn't mean Marissa? What if it meant his father's sins? By evening, she was back in the detention center. Renner sat behind bulletproof glass, calm as ever. his hands, folded eyes unreadable. "You were protecting your father?" she said. He smiled faintly. "You make it sound noble." "Did he order the murders?" "No, he ordered silence." She leaned forward. "Then who carried them out?" Renner's eyes lifted, catching hers. "You already met him. Doyle." A slow nod. "The company used contract labor, disposables. Doyle was their fixer. When Marissa found out, they panicked. Lang tried to stop her. My father intervened, told me to make it disappear. I thought I was saving her. I was saving him." Grant's throat tightened. And Elaine Klein. She saw the wrong thing. Doyle made sure she saw no more. Her hands trembled, the pen digging into her palm. "Why didn't you stop him?" "Because by the time I realized what he'd become, Renner said quietly he already owned me." She stared at him, the hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence between them. "He's dead now." Renner's smile didn't fade. "No, detective, he's not." Her pulse spiked. "We found his body." "You found a body," he said. "Not his. You ever wonder why the fingerprints took so long to confirm?" Grant shot to her feet. "You're lying." "Am I?" he whispered. "Check your morgue records." She did. An hour later, she was standing in the cold, fluorescent light of the county morgue. The technician frowned as she flipped through the files. "You sure about this, detective? Everything's logged." "Show me Doyle's prints." He pulled the file, reluctantly handing it over. The form was complete until the last line. The fingerprint sheet was blank. Grant's stomach dropped. "Where are they?" "Never sent," the technician said. "Chain of custody broke before they arrived. Courier signed them out 2 nights ago. Never came back." "Name." The man hesitated. "R. Keller." Grant's eyes widened. Keller was internal affairs. She called Boyd immediately. "Where's Keller?" "On leave," he said. "Family emergency." "Check his location." "I already did." His badge pinged at the evidence vault an hour before the prints went missing. Then nothing. "Send me his address." She drove there through sheets of rain tires, slicing puddles, sirens echoing faintly behind her. Keller's apartment sat in an industrial complex by the waterfront, half-empty windows boarded. The door was unlocked. Inside, the place smelled of mildew and smoke. On the table, a box of old case files, the missing fingerprint sheets, and a burner phone still vibrating. She answered it. A voice on the other end, distorted, mechanical. "Detective Grant." Her grip tightened. "Who is this? You should stop digging. You've found enough graves for one lifetime." Her voice was steel. "Is this Doyle?" A pause. Then, there was never a Doyle. There was only what they built. The line went dead. She stood there in silence, rain tapping against the broken window. The city's glow flickering beyond. In the corner of the room, something caught her eye. A photograph taped to the wall. Ravenna Park, 1985. The same mural Marissa had painted, but before it was destroyed. Except this one had something extra. A 7th figure, faintly sketched in blue, standing in the background. She moved closer. The figure's face was blurred, but she could read the initials carved beneath it. AG. Her initials. The chill crawled up her spine. Someone had painted her into the story before she'd even been born. The phone buzzed again, this time with a single text message. "You're next." Grant turned towards the window. Outside, across the wet glass, a man stood on the opposite rooftop, motionless, watching. The same pale eyes, the same face from the footage, Doyle, alive and smiling. She reached for her gun, but by the time she looked again, he was gone. Only the city remained whispering beneath the storm. The cold case wasn't just alive, it was evolving. And now, it had her name. The next morning broke under a bruised sky-gray light bleeding through the blinds of her apartment. Detective Alyssa Grant hadn't slept. The message still glowed on her phone like an open wound. "You're next." She'd replayed it 100 times, dissected every pixel of the photo, every flicker of shadow. But what haunted her most wasn't the threat, it was the eyes. Doyle's eyes. Pale, cold, familiar. She brewed coffee that went untouched, checked the locks twice, then once more. The city outside felt quieter than usual. Not peace, a pause before something violent. At 8:47 a.m., her landline rang. No one called her home line, ever. She picked up. Silence at first. Then a man's voice, calm, almost polite. "Detective Grant, we've never met, but I think you're in danger." Her heart stuttered. "Who is this?" "Someone who worked on the original Ravenna file," he said. "Name's Ellis Vance. I was a forensic photographer back then. You don't know me, but I know you've seen my work." She froze. The Polaroids, the ones from 1985. You took those photos. I developed them, he corrected softly. But I also took one that was never logged. They told me to destroy it. I didn't. What was in it? A pause. Proof that Marissa Hale wasn't the first. The line hissed with static. Where are you? Grant demanded. Pier 54, Storage Unit 12. Come alone. The call ended before she could answer. Grant grabbed her badge, her gun, and the folder with the mural photo. She didn't tell Boyd. The fewer people who knew, the better. By the time she reached the pier, fog had swallowed the water, the smell of salt and rust thick in the air. Storage Unit 12 was at the far end door, slightly ajar. A light flickered inside. Vance, she called. No answer. Her hand tightened around her gun as she stepped inside. The air was stale, heavy with dust. Shelves of old photo equipment lined the walls, chemicals rolls of negatives, cracked frames. In the center, a metal table. On it, an envelope marked Ravenna 1. She moved closer. The photo inside was old Polaroid edges yellowed with time. It showed the same park clearing, same angle as the crime scene photos, but the date stamp read 1983, 2 years before Marissa Hale's murder. The figure in the photo wasn't Marissa. It was another woman lying in the same position, same wound, same missing shoe. Grant's stomach turned. Oh my God! The sound of a camera shutter echoed behind her. She spun around, flashlight slicing through the dark, but no one was there. Only the smell of cigarette smoke, faint and lingering. Then, from the shadows, a voice. You're standing where she died, Doyle. He stepped forward, slowly, raincoat, damp hair, silver under the flickering bulb. His voice was calm, detached. That photo, that was my first job. The one that made me useful. You killed her, Grant said, gun raised. He smiled. I buried her. There's a difference. Why? Because people like me don't choose sides, he said. We clean up after those who do. You mean Renner's father? The senator? He chuckled. He wasn't the only one. There were others. Contractors, donors, developers. They built this city on poison detective, buried their waste, buried their mistakes, buried anyone who asked questions. Grant's finger twitched on the trigger. And you did the burying. Doyle shrugged. Everyone's good at something. She took a step forward. Then why threaten me? Why come back? His expression changed. Something almost like regret flickered across his face. Because I didn't paint that mural. What are you talking about? He pointed to the folder in her hand. The initials. AG. You thought it was coincidence. You were wrong. She painted it. The first one. Grant frowned. Marissa. No, the one before her. Her mother. The words hit her like a blow. That's impossible. Doyle tilted his head. You ever wonder why you became a detective? Why this case pulled you in like gravity? Because this was never random. You've been circling it since the day you were born? Her grip on the gun faltered. You're lying. He smiled faintly. Am I? Her mind spiraled back the mural, the initials, the records that never listed Marissa's parents, the adoption file sealed by the court. She'd dismissed it as coincidence, but now she lowered her weapon voice, trembling. Who was she? Anna Hale Doyle said quietly. Marissa's mother? Your mother. The air left her lungs. The fog outside pressed against the doorway, thick and suffocating. No, that's not. I was there when she disappeared, he continued. She found the first dump site in '83. Tried to go public. They silenced her, but not before she painted it, the first mural. Marissa inherited her obsession. Same eyes, same defiance. She started asking questions, too. That's why they came for her. Grant shook her head. Why tell me this now? Because you're the last piece, he said. The one she didn't get to protect. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. And because they're coming for you next. A crash outside, tires on wet pavement, the sound of boots. Doyle's eyes widened. They found me, he whispered. Gunfire shattered the silence. The window exploded. Bullets tore through the metal walls. Grant dove behind a crate, returning fire toward the doorway. Doyle dropped beside her, clutching his side, blood spreading fast. Who are they? She shouted. He coughed his breath, rattling. North Star. They never died. Just changed names. The barrels were only part of it. Another volley of shots. Glass rained down. She fired again, 2 rounds 3. Then silence. When she turned back, Doyle was slumped against the wall. His hand reached weakly toward her pocket. Take it. She hesitated. What? Inside jacket, he rasped. She reached in, pulling out a small black drive. They buried the truth, he said. voice fading. That holds what's left of it. Then he was gone. The fog swallowed the sound of sirens approaching. She stumbled outside, clutching the drive. The pier lights flickered over empty docks. No shooters, no witnesses, only shell casings and the echo of footsteps receding into the mist. By the time backup arrived, the unit was in flames. The photo, the negatives, everything gone, but she still had the drive. That night, in the silence of her apartment, Grant plugged it into her laptop. Dozens of files appeared. Scans, images, letters. One folder stood out AG_1984. She opened it. The first image was a photo of the mural Bright Defiant painted under the same Ravenna trees. Beneath it, scrawled in blue paint, "For my daughter, so she will know where to look." Grant stared at the screen, and tears stinging her eyes. For the first time, she understood. The mural wasn't a message to the city. It was a message to her. And whatever her mother had found back then was still buried somewhere in Ravenna Park. The city slept under a storm of headlines. Ravenna murders exposed decades of corruption, toxic cover-up tied to political dynasty. Every network replayed the same footage, barrels lifted from the mud detectives in masks. Senator Thomas Renner's face frozen in denial as microphones crowded around him. But while the city looked backward, Alyssa Grant was staring into something deeper, a personal truth carved into the bones of the past. The flash drive sat on her desk like a loaded gun. She hadn't moved in hours, eyes fixed on the folder titled AG_1984. Inside were hundreds of photographs, blueprints, handwritten notes, aerial shots of construction sites. Each file was marked with the same signature in the corner, Anna Hale, her mother. Grant scrolled through the images slowly as if each click might detonate. The photos traced a pattern across Seattle, 6 sites all marked with red circles, waste treatment plants, water facilities, unused warehouses. But one of them made her stop cold. Ravenna Park Drainage Tunnel, Zone 7. In the bottom corner of that photo, barely visible, were 2 silhouettes, a man and a woman. The man's face was turned away, but the woman's hand held a camera. The date in the corner read June 14th, 1984. A year before Marissa Hale was killed. Her phone buzzed. "Boyd, you need to come in," he said. "Now." The precinct was chaos when she arrived, reporters clustered outside, lights flashing. Inside, the mood was worse. The interrogation room was empty. The guard outside, pale. "Where's Renner?" she demanded. Boyd didn't answer right away. He handed her a report. They transferred him to county lockup at dawn. The van never made it. Her voice dropped. "What do you mean, never made it?" "They found it 10 miles outside the city. Doors open. Driver gone. Renner gone." The world tilted around her. "He's not running," Boyd said grimly. "He's being erased." Grant's mind spun. Every thread she pulled unraveled another. Doyle's files, her mother's photos, Renner's confession, all roads led back to one place, Ravenna Park. By dusk, she was there again. The park was cordoned off now, crime scene tape fluttering like prayer flags in the wind. Floodlights cast long shadows through the trees. The excavation site was a crater of mud and twisted roots, the ground scarred by years of buried lies. She walked toward the old drainage tunnel. The air was cold, metallic. Her flashlight beam caught faint paint marks on the concrete wall, turquoise streaks half washed away by time. Beneath them, letters carved by hand, AG. Her breath caught. She ran her fingers along the grooves. There was something embedded behind them, a small panel disguised by moss and grime. She pried it open with her knife. Inside a narrow compartment, a film canister sealed in wax. Her heart pounded as she pulled it free. The metal was cold, but intact. She held it up to the light faint writing scratched into the lid. "If you find this, the story isn't over." She barely had time to react before a noise echoed behind her, the crunch of footsteps, slow, careful. She spun around, flashlight raised. Detective said, a voice she knew too well. "Renner." He stepped from the shadows, clothes soaked, face hollow. No cuffs, no guards. Just him breathing hard, eyes wide with something between fear and fury. "You escaped," she said. "They let me go," he replied. "They wanted me to lead them here." "Who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the canister in her hand. "You found it. What's inside?" "My father's confession," he said. "And your mother's proof." She hesitated. "You knew her." He nodded slowly. Anna was the first to see what we were doing. She tried to warn people. My father silenced her. I thought I was saving her daughter when I helped with the adoption, but they made me part of it. Her pulse thundered in her ears. You're saying I was protected, he said quickly. Hidden. Anna wanted it that way. You weren't supposed to find out, but the moment you reopened the case, you started the clock. The wind howled through the tunnel. Her flashlight flickered. Renner stepped closer. They'll come for you. They don't need to kill you. They just need the story to disappear. Same way they erased her, same way they buried me. Then why are you here? He exhaled shakily. Because I'm done hiding. I came to finish what she started. A light flashed through the trees. Headlights cutting through fog. Engines, multiple. She heard doors slam boots on gravel, voices barking orders. Federal, she whispered. Renner shook his head. Not unless the FBI started dressing in black. They ran. Down into the tunnel through knee-deep water, the walls closing in. Behind them, the roar of footsteps and static of radios. Give me the canister, Renner shouted. No. He grabbed her arm. If they catch you with it, you're dead. Before she could answer, gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets sparking off concrete. They dove into a side corridor, plunging into darkness. The sound of footsteps grew louder, closer. Renner turned to her eyes wide. There's another way out. Up the ladder. She hesitated. What about you? He gave a hollow smile. I've been running since 1985. Maybe it's time I stop. Before she could protest, he shoved her toward the ladder. She climbed the canister, pressed tight against her chest. Below, the tunnel filled with the echo of shouts, then gunfire, sharp, deafening, final. When she reached the surface, the park was empty. No sirens, no lights. Just the hum of rain on leaves. She looked back at the drainage tunnel. Smoke drifted from its mouth. Renner was gone. She clutched the canister to her chest, her hands shaking. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, carried on the wind like a warning. That night, in her apartment, she cracked the seal. Inside a single roll of undeveloped film. Alongside it, a folded notepaper, yellowed and fragile. To whoever finds this, they will try to erase us, but the earth remembers what we bury. The truth has a heartbeat. It never stops. Signed A. Anna Hale. Grant stared at the note until her vision blurred. She picked up her phone, dialed Boyd. I have proof, she whispered. Everything they did. Everything they killed for. The line went dead before she could finish. On her phone screen, a message appeared. Unknown number. Too late. Then a photo. Her apartment building. Taken from across the street. She turned slowly toward the window. The street below was empty, the rain glowing under the orange light of the lampposts. But deep in the alley's darkness, a shadow moved. Watching. Waiting. The cold case wasn't just history anymore. It was alive. And it had found her. The sound of her heartbeat filled the silence, a deep, pulsing thud that echoed louder than the rain outside. Detective Alyssa Grant stood frozen by the window, eyes fixed on the shadow across the street. It didn't move, didn't retreat, just lingered there, patient, deliberate, watching. Her instincts screamed to run. Instead, she killed the lights. The room sank into darkness. The only glow came from her laptop, its screen still showing her mother's last note. The truth has a heartbeat. It never stops. The phone vibrated again. Another message. Leave the canister. Walk away. She typed back, hands trembling. Who are you? No reply. She reached for her gun, holstered at the table, and slipped into the hallway. The building was old, its walls breathing with every gust of wind. She crept down the stairwell, her steps silent, controlled. The street below shimmered under the sodium light. Empty, quiet, too quiet. Then a noise. Footsteps on the wet concrete, slow, careful. She pressed herself against the wall and waited. A silhouette appeared at the corner, tall, heavy coat hood drawn low. He stopped in front of her building and looked up directly at her window. A beam of light flicked across his hand, a phone camera. He took a picture. Grant's pulse surged. She stepped out, weapon raised. Police, drop it. The man turned his head. She caught a flash of his face before he bolted into the alley. Doyle. She sprinted after him, boots splashing through puddles, breath sharp against the cold. The alley twisted into darkness, the stench of oil and rain thick in the air. She caught glimpses of him between dumpsters, gray hair, black coat, deliberate stride. He wasn't running to escape. He was leading her somewhere. "Stop," she shouted. He didn't. He slipped through a chain-link gate, vanishing behind an abandoned warehouse. The same warehouse she'd seen in her mother's photos, one of the red circles. North Star Infrastructure Depot Zone 7. She followed. Inside the place was a mausoleum of metal and dust. Old machinery, rusted drums, broken cranes hanging like skeletons from the rafters. Water dripped steadily from the ceiling, each drop echoing like a countdown. Her flashlight cut through the dark. Doyle. His voice came from the shadows, calm, almost resigned. "You shouldn't have come here, detective. You're supposed to be dead. Everyone in this story is supposed to be dead." She turned toward the sound. "You killed Renner." He stepped into the light, hands raised. "No, they did. I just made sure you'd find what you needed. You set me up. I set you free," he said softly. "You were meant to finish this, not for them, for her." Her throat tightened. "My mother. She tried to expose them, and they made her disappear. When I buried her, I thought it would end there. But she planned further than any of us realized. She left a trail only you could follow." "Why me?" He looked at her like someone seeing a ghost. "Because you have her eyes." The words hit like a punch. For a moment, everything was silent but the dripping water. Then she noticed something behind him, glowing faintly under the flashlight beam. A row of sealed barrels. New, marked with fresh paint. North Star Biosolutions. Her breath caught. "You're still doing it," she whispered, "after all these years." Doyle's expression darkened. "Not me. Them. You think the city stopped feeding its monsters? They just changed their names. Moved their operations underground. Ravenna was never the last dump site, it was the first." She stepped closer, lowering the gun slightly. "Then help me stop them. Testify. Bring it all out." He shook his head slowly. "There's no court for this kind of truth, only endings." Before she could answer, a metallic snap echoed above a rifle bolt, sliding into place. She dove behind a crate as a shot shattered the air. The bullet ripped through the wall inches from her head. Doyle fell back, clutching his shoulder, blood blooming through his coat. "Sniper," she yelled, firing upward. Another shot. Sparks exploded from the barrel beside her. She grabbed Doyle, dragging him behind a stack of pallets. His breathing was ragged, shallow. "You brought them?" he gasped. "No," she said. "They were already here. Listen." He fumbled inside his coat, pulling out another flash drive. Smaller, metallic. "You need to take this. It's the other half." "What's on it?" "Names, dates, the list they killed for. It's everything." She hesitated. "Why not go public yourself?" His voice faltered. "Because I already tried. That's why they burned me alive in 1996. Another shot rang out. A floodlight burst above, plunging half the warehouse into darkness. Shadows moved along the rafters. 3 figures in tactical gear. No insignia, no lights. Doyle pushed the drive into her hand. "Go. I'm not leaving you. You already lost your mother to this," he rasped. "Don't let her die for nothing." He shoved her hard, and the motion sent her stumbling toward the side door. She turned back just long enough to see him raise his weapon toward the catwalk. Gunfire erupted, loud, violent, endless. Then silence. Smoke filled the air, thick with cordite and rain. Grant ran. Through the back exit, down the flooded street, across the bridge that cut through the industrial district. Behind her, the warehouse burned orange flames, clawing into the night sky, devouring decades of secrets. She didn't stop running until she reached her car. She threw the drive onto the passenger seat, hands shaking as she started the engine. Her reflection in the mirror was pale eyes, wild. Her mother's eyes. The radio crackled, static, then a voice. Low, calm, familiar. "Detective Grant," it said. She froze. "Who is this? Do you really think this ends with Doyle?" Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "You're too close now," the voice continued. "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Bring it to Ravenna tomorrow at dawn, alone, or we'll come for it ourselves." Then the line went dead. Outside, the rain fell harder, blurring the world into streaks of gray. She stared through the windshield pulse, trembling in her throat. Doyle was gone, Renner was gone, her mother was gone, and yet the story was still alive, beating beneath the city like a second heart. She looked at the flash drive, its metallic surface catching the light, the names, the truth, the final key. Tomorrow at dawn she would return to Ravenna Park, not as a detective, not as a daughter, but as bait. The storm broke just before dawn, Rain still clung to the city, turning the streets into mirrors of broken light. Detective Alyssa Grant drove without headlights, the sky bruised purple above the skyline Ravenna Park rising ahead like a wound that refused to close. The flash drive sat on the seat beside her, sealed in a plastic bag, its weight heavier than a gun. Every nerve in her body screamed this was a trap, but she didn't have a choice anymore. She was done running. By the time she reached the park, the world was gray and silent. Mist pooled between the trees. The air smelled of soil and static. She parked near the old drainage tunnel, the same place her mother had stood 40 years ago, camera in hand, defying the men who built their empire on poison. Now it was Alyssa's turn. She stepped into the clearing, gun holstered, but ready the drive in her pocket, her breath fogged in the cold air. "I'm here," she called. "You wanted it. Come and take it." Nothing. Just the whisper of wind through branches. Then a voice, smooth, deep, practiced. Detective Grant. She turned. A man stepped from the fog, tall, wearing a dark coat. He wasn't armed. He didn't need to be. The kind of power he carried didn't come from weapons. "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "You already know. Thomas Renner. The senator. Paul Renner's father. The man who'd signed the contracts, the man who'd started it all." His hair was silver now, his face drawn but sharp. The kind of face used to cameras, not consequences. "I thought you'd be hiding in D.C., she said. "I don't hide," he replied. "I manage outcomes." "You mean you bury them?" He nodded slightly. "Bury, manage, contain. Words change. The work doesn't." He took a step closer. "You've done well. You've found pieces no one else ever did. But this," he gestured toward her pocket, "this doesn't belong to you." "It belonged to my mother," she said. For the first time, the senator's eyes flickered. "So you know." "I know she tried to stop you. I know you killed her. And I know you buried her under this park like she was waste." His voice softened. "Your mother was brilliant, passionate, dangerous. She didn't understand the world we were building, the world you were poisoning." He sighed. "Progress always poisons something." She took a step forward, fury rising in her throat. "You think this is about progress? You killed women. You killed your own son's soul. You killed this city." He studied her calmly. "You sound just like her. Then you know how this ends." Before he could answer, a second voice cut through the fog. "Put the gun down, Alyssa." She spun around. Captain Marcus Boyd stood a few yards behind her, weapon drawn. Rain streaked his face, but his eyes were steady. "Marcus," she breathed. "What the hell are you doing?" "Lower it," he said again. "You're with him." "I'm with the department," he said quietly. "The people who still have to wake up tomorrow and keep this city standing." Her stomach dropped. "You're covering for him." "I'm cleaning up the mess, like always. After everything we found, after Doyle, the barrels, the bodies, how can you still protect this?" Boyd's face hardened. "You don't understand. The city isn't built on justice. It's built on control. You rip that away, you don't get truth, you get chaos." Thomas Renner smiled faintly behind him. "You see why I kept him close." Grant's hand hovered near her weapon. "You don't have to do this, Marcus." He took a slow step closer. "Put it down, Alyssa. Walk away. We'll make this disappear. You can still have your life." She stared at him, rain dripping from her hair. "You sound like every man who ever stood over a grave and called it progress." He hesitated. For a heartbeat, she saw doubt flicker in his eyes. Then his jaw tightened. "I'm sorry." The senator raised his hand. "End it." The gunshot tore through the air, but it wasn't Boyd's weapon that fired. Boyd jerked backward, blood blooming across his chest. He hit the ground hard. Renner froze, startled. Grant turned her weapon smoking. "I'm done being buried," she said. The senator's calm cracked. "You just made a very big mistake." "No," she whispered. "I corrected one." Sirens howled in the distance, real this time. Not his, not hers. Independent. The senator's eyes shifted toward the trees, where the first red-blue lights began to pierce the fog. His smile returned faint but venomous. "You think this ends with me? I'm the last of the old names. The ones who come after don't need blood to control you. They use contracts, data, law. You can't shoot what you can't see." She stepped closer, gun still aimed. "Then I'll make them visible." He held her gaze for a long moment, then raised his hands slowly. "You're your mother's daughter, after all." When the uniforms flooded the clearing, she didn't move. They pulled him away in cuffs, his calm face glowing under the floodlights like a statue finally cracking. Boyd's body was covered. Cameras flashed. Voices shouted. But all she heard was the rain. Back at the precinct hours later, she sat in the evidence room alone. The flash drive was still sealed in its bag, the film canister beside it. The entire city was calling it over. Cold case solved. Senator arrested. Justice at last. But she knew better. The files on that drive weren't just proof of a crime. They were a blueprint, not for corruption, but for the machine that hid it. She inserted the drive into her laptop one final time. Hundreds of documents filled the screen. Financial ledgers, offshore accounts, photographs of barrels stamped with new company names. North Star Biosolutions, Horizon Environmental, Sentinel Logistics. Different names, same people. One file at the bottom blinked red. ag-legacy.mp4. She clicked it. The screen filled with static, then a woman's voice, soft, steady, familiar. If you're watching this, it means they couldn't stop you. My name is Anna Hale. They tried to bury me, but you found me. What they're doing isn't about chemicals. It's about control. They don't dump waste, they dump truth. They decide which memories survive. They erase the rest. Grant's hands trembled. If you're my daughter, the voice continued, then know this. The only way to kill a ghost is to make it seen. The video cut to black. Outside the precinct, sirens wailed again, not in alarm, but in chorus. Reporters crowded the steps. The city was waking up to the sound of its own buried heartbeat. Grant pocketed the drive. The rain had stopped. Dawn was breaking pale and cold. She walked outside, feeling the chill hit her skin. For the first time in years, the air smelled clean. But deep in the distance, beneath the hum of the waking city, she could almost hear it. A new machine starting up quiet, relentless, waiting for its next secret to feed on. And she knew the cold case was only over for those who needed it to be. For her, it was just the beginning. The morning light crept over Seattle like a hesitant truth, cold and colorless after the storm. The headlines screamed triumph. Senator Thomas Renner arrested, and 40-year-old cold case detective Grant ends decades of corruption justice for the Ravenna victims. The words felt empty. Too clean for what really happened. Too polished for the dirt still under her nails. Detective Alyssa Grant stood on the hill above Ravenna Park, the same ground that had hidden her mother, the same soil that had kept the city's conscience buried. Below her, the park was sealed with yellow tape cranes, pulling twisted metal from the earth. The air still carried the scent of burnt resin and rain. She closed her eyes and let the silence fall over her. It wasn't peace, it was aftermath. In her pocket, the flash drive was warm against her palm, as if it had a pulse of its own. She hadn't turned it in. Not all of it. The official case file had been sealed again under a new label, Environmental Security Act Section 14. The department called it classified. The media called it closure. Alyssa called it unfinished. She lit a cigarette she didn't want and watched the smoke twist into the wind. Her reflection stared back faintly in the park's rainwater-tired eyes. Streaks of gray in her hair, her mother's defiance etched into every line of her face. For 40 years, the truth had been passed like a sickness, bleeding from one generation to the next. Now, for the first time, it had a voice. But the cost was everything. Renner had taken a plea. Health reasons, the headlines said. The man who'd signed away lives would spend his last years in a private clinic, his empire quietly dismantled, but never erased. Boyd was dead, labeled a casualty of duty. The others, the men behind North Star Horizon Sentinel, vanished into the legal fog of corporate restructuring. The city went back to breathing, pretending its heartbeat was steady again. But at night, Seattle still felt like a crime scene. She walked the trail toward the old maintenance shed, the boards creaking under her boots. The mural was gone, washed away by time, by fire, by cleanup crews desperate to erase reminders. Only fragments of turquoise paint clung to the wood, stubborn and faint. She ran her fingers across them. For a moment, she imagined her mother here, camera in one hand, brush in the other, painting the faces of those who refused to stay silent. Marissa Elaine, the unnamed victims buried beneath contracts and lies. each one a story the city tried to delete, each one now carved into her memory. From the trees behind her came the sound of a single footstep. She didn't turn. "I thought you were dead," she said quietly. The voice that answered was older, rasped by smoke and years. "People like us don't die, Detective. We just fade out of the report." Doyle stepped into view, wrapped in a heavy coat, his left arm still in a sling. The rain had washed most of the blood from his face, but not the weight from his eyes. "You burned," she said. "I burned what needed burning," he replied. The rest, he gestured toward the park, wasn't mine to keep. She studied him for a long moment. "You left another flash drive in that warehouse, the one you said held the names." He smiled faintly. "You really think I'd keep everything in one place? No. What I gave you wasn't the truth, it was the map to it." Her pulse tightened. "Then where is it?" He looked out over the park. "Still here. Not under the ground in the systems, the contracts, the data, the donations. They built their ghosts into the network. You kill one, 3 more are born. But the mural?" He nodded toward the shed. "She knew how to make people look. You do too." "You think I can stop it?" "No," he said. "But you can make them afraid again." She exhaled slowly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because your mother believed the truth wasn't about punishment. It was about memory. She didn't want justice. She wanted the city to remember what it had done." He turned to leave, but she stopped him. "What happens when they come for me?" He gave a tired laugh. "Then make sure they remember you too." She watched him disappear into the fog, his figure swallowed by the trees until he became part of the park again, another ghost folded into the soil. That night, she sat at her kitchen table laptop, open cigarette burning in the ashtray. The cursor blinked on an empty screen. No badge number, no police letterhead, just her words. "My name is Detective Alyssa Grant. This is the story Seattle tried to bury." She uploaded the files, her mother's recordings, the evidence, the names. It would spread before sunrise. Journalists would find it. People would question it. Some would deny it. Some would be afraid. But it would live, and maybe that was enough. As she closed the laptop, her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "You can't save them all." She smiled faintly. "Watch me." The rain started again, soft this time, almost gentle. Outside her window, the city's lights shimmered through the mist. Somewhere a siren wailed. Somewhere a truth began to move again. Ravenna Park would heal. The grass would grow over the scars, the trails would reopen, and children would run where the dead once slept. But beneath it all, the ground would still remember. Because some secrets never die. They just wait to be found. The city woke to noise again. Sirens, helicopters, voices calling it the end of an era. But Detective Alyssa Grant knew better. Endings don't sound like this. They don't come with press conferences and camera flashes. Real endings whisper. They hide in basements, in archives, in blood that never quite washes off the concrete. It had been 3 weeks since the upload. 3 weeks since the files hit the dark web and spilled into the morning news. Her story had gone global. The Ravenna cover-up. The daughter of the cold case. The cop who took down a dynasty. Everyone wanted an interview. Everyone wanted a sound bite. But Alyssa stayed silent. She had no interest in fame. Only in silence, the kind her mother never got to have. Seattle changed overnight. Protests outside City Hall, subpoenas for old officials, dozens of resignations. The Renner name was finished. But new companies, new shells were already rising like weeds from the ashes. It was never about one man. It was the machine. The city was still breathing its same corrupted air, pretending it was fresh. Alyssa had resigned from the force. Officially, stress leave. Unofficially, they'd made her a liability. Her badge sat on the kitchen counter beside the empty mug and the burned-out laptop. She hadn't been sleeping. The walls felt closer every night. Every noise outside made her hand twitch toward her gun. Still, there were nights when she felt her mother in the room, soft presence, faint scent of turpentine and rain. Sometimes she'd wake to find the faint hum of her laptop screen alive again, her mother's voice looping from the last video file. The only way to kill a ghost is to make it seen. She'd stare at the words until dawn, then she'd walk, always to the same place, Ravenna. The park was open now, newly cleaned, the air sharp with pine and bleach. Families walked their dogs past the signs that read, "Restoration completed, a safer future for Seattle." The irony made her sick. She followed the old path to the maintenance shed. The boards had been replaced, the mural gone forever. But as she traced the new wood with her fingertips, she felt something rough beneath the varnish. She leaned closer. Carved into the lower panel, barely visible, were 2 letters. AG. She smiled. A ghost signature. Maybe the workers didn't even notice when they cut the old boards, or maybe someone left it there on purpose. Either way, her mother was still here. She sat on the steps and watched the fog drift through the trees. The sound of water running underground was faint but constant. The heartbeat of the park, the heartbeat of truth. Then a rustle, footsteps behind her, slow, deliberate. She didn't move. I thought you'd find it, a voice said. She turned. Doyle, again, alive again. He looked older than before. Thinner eyes, sunken but sharp. You never did listen. I thought you were gone. I thought I was too. She studied him. What do you want, Doyle? He gestured toward the shed. To show you what's left. The rest of the truth. She frowned. There's nothing left to find. The case is over. He smiled, bitter and small. No, that's what they want you to believe. You released part of the story, but not all of it. The drive you uploaded, those weren't the final files. They were edited long before you found them. Her stomach tightened. Edited by who? He stared at her for a long moment. By her. Alyssa froze. My mother. He nodded. She cut what she couldn't bear to show you. The 7th barrel. The one that never made it to evidence. Her pulse raced. What was inside? Not what he said softly. Who? He reached into his coat and pulled out a small photo envelope, yellowed with time. It was taken the night before she died. She was documenting the final dump site, but look closer. She took the photo. The image was blurry fog headlights, silhouettes. One of them, unmistakably, her mother. Another, larger shadowed, was standing beside her, hand gripping her arm, the face half-turned, caught by the flash. Her breath left her body. Renner, she whispered. Doyle shook his head. No, look again. She tilted the photo toward the light. The face sharpened. It wasn't the senator. It wasn't Lang. It was Doyle. Her knees went weak. That's you. He didn't flinch. I told you I buried her. I didn't tell you why. The silence between them cracked. She found out what I was, he said. Not just a cleaner, a witness. I did the work. They paid me. I thought I was saving her when I stopped her from running. But the truth doesn't stop Alyssa. It eats everything. She stepped back, hand instinctively on her gun. You killed her. He nodded once, slowly. And I've been paying for it ever since. You helped me. Because guilt is its own leash, he said. Because every time I looked at you, I saw her forgiveness staring back. Her hand trembled. Why tell me now? He looked past her toward the shed. Because they'll come for you next. Because now, you're the last witness. He turned to leave. Doyle, she shouted. He stopped, not turning around. Don't waste your life chasing ghost, detective. They always win. And then he vanished into the fog, his figure dissolving into the trees until only the rain remained. Alyssa stood alone in the clearing, the photo clutched in her shaking hand. The truth twisted again, not clean, not redemptive, just endless. Her mother, Doyle, Renner, herself, all threads in the same machine. She sank to her knees, staring at the initials carved in the wood. AG. It wasn't a signature. It was a warning, a mirror, a prophecy. The wind picked up, carrying the faint hum of the city. Beyond the trees' sirens' engines, the low pulse of something bigger, still breathing underground. She slid the photo into her coat and whispered into the rain. This doesn't end with me. Somewhere deep in the soil of Seattle, something shifted as if the park itself was exhaling. And for the first time since 1985, the city felt awake. Because even when their case is solved, even when the bodies are buried, truth has a way of digging itself out. And it never sleeps.